Right, so no headlines, getting straight into it this morning because, I mean, it's just some of the biggest, most scary, horrible, twisted news we've had in quite some time, isn't it?
Well, we all thought that 2022 was the mental year.
Yeah.
And then we're kicking things off strong, right? It doesn't get any bigger than this. Vince McMahon, just in case you missed it, he's back in WWE.
Yeah.
Back on the board.
And it's sort of, it's been this very big situation developing all week, but now it's been confirmed by the company. But yesterday, before SmackDown, they held a staff meeting. It was like a staff call, rather, with basically the company trying to explain the return of Vince and explain away the return of Vince.
It was described once again, and this is an expression that I've not heard until we started doing wrestling videos, as a rah-rah meeting.
Yes.
Rah-rah. Is that a thing? Is that just a rest? Anyway, right. So yeah, prior to the call, they released a statement saying that two directors had also left the company. So the statement read, Vince McMahon, in his capacity as controlling shareholder of the company, has removed Joellen Lyons-Dillon, Jeffrey R. Speed, and Alan M. Wexler from the board. We knew about those three, but it continues. Vince McMahon, George Barrios, and Michelle Wilson has been added to the board to fill the resulting vacancies. Inyas Lahoud and Manjit Singh have resigned from the board effective today. A really interesting note on Manjit Singh. He was the leading investigator on the Vince McMahon investigation internally.
Which is, I mean, yeah, that says quite a lot about the situation, doesn't it?
I don't know.
The board,
read between the lines, I guess.
The board currently consists of Vince McMahon, Stephanie McMahon, Nick Khan, Paul Levesque, Steve Koonin, Michelle McKenna, Steve Parman, George Barrios, and Michelle Wilson, as you said.
Mm-hmm. And can we just get a quick picture of George Barrios?
There you go.
Look at the forehead on the... Is that body shaming? I can't get over it. I cannot get over that man's forehead. Anyway, back onto serious matters, because this is a serious story. What went down in the meeting? PW Insider, kind enough to provide some notes, some really interesting stuff in here. First off, they kicked off saying Vince McMahon is back on the board of directors. They reiterated there would be no changes to management or responsibilities at this time. So, Paul Levesque, Steph, Nick Khan, Frank Riddick III, who was also on the call, they're all going to remain in place in their current positions and jobs. This is really important because a lot of people, myself included, thought Vince is coming back, he's going to meddle in creative. According to them on this call, that isn't the plan currently. But it's Vince McMahon. That's the thing. Like, you never know, do you?
Well, that was it. Even during his time away, he was still majority shareholder, and it was the big question initially of like, oh, well, what if he's still pulling the strings behind the scenes, and if he's just going to use it as to find a way back? But now there's been this extra little caveat thrown in. I think it's the first time it's been directly referenced by the company. I don't remember them directly referencing it last time we were talking about this, but they were saying that the move was a very big positive and trying to spin it that way. And it was apparently made to give the company everything they needed to make the most of their future rights and revenue sales. So new deals for the TV shows and everything that they're producing to go out on broadcast, as well as to potentially gauge the market for a sale of the company, with the idea that with Vince McMahon back, everybody's on the same page, all the companies together, the not founder, but the guy who's supposed to be in charge of the company's back. He owns all the shares, and they can all just kind of do it in a wanna if they want to sell.
With regard to this, Brandon Thurston on Twitter said that Vince McMahon had made a new filing to WWE's bylaws so that media rights deal and any company sales cannot be made without his approval. The filing includes his letters to the board as exhibits. So essentially, and I mentioned this on a news video earlier this week, but he holds all the cards. We've known that for a long, long time, but he's explicitly said, look, nothing's happening. We're not going to a new broadcast. We're not doing any sales. I've got to have final say on this. And so they're sort of, their hands were tied, weren't they? They've got to have him back on the board, because if they say no, he could basically just mess everything up without being on the board.
There was an internal email that leaked as well from Vince that was more like an internal communique, where it was essentially him saying that he was coming back, and that was that, and it was quite direct. It was quite blunt about the whole thing, and it was it just sort of smacked of what's going on.
I think if the plan is to sell the company, forgive me for what I'm about to say, but Vince, of course, really does need to be on board and probably overseeing that process. You can slag off the elderly man as much as you like with regard to him being out of touch or his creative, but he's an incredible businessman. salesman. If that's what you care, and if that is the plan, if that is the plan to sell the business, Vince should probably be at the forefront of that.
Yeah.
As majority shareholder, he stands to gain the most, so why wouldn't he want to be involved in the selling process? It is the first time that I think that WWE have explicitly said we're looking at a potential sale, not of media rights, of the company itself. Yeah,
I think that, you know, as you know, horrible as the Vince situation is, if he is just going to sit there and block any potential future sale, as you said, their hands are completely tied on
That's
it.
it,
And it's just one of those things where, provided nothing else changes, and provided it's sort of, you know, a role in name only, I'd imagine, you know, that's the kind of thing that leading to a sale is going to be the best moving forward, maybe, if he has to stay with the company, but I don't know.
It was mentioned on the call as well that a possible avenue for the company could be for it to be taken private again, if it was the best outcome for shareholders. It was mentioned among potential strategic options, not that it's something that they will definitely be doing, but it's an option. If they stand to make the most money there, it could go private again, and you would assume that Vince would stay on as majority shareholder of the then private company.
Probably, yeah, without having to, you know, deal with quite a large number of public investors, which, you know, has got to be a thorn in his side from time to time, I'd imagine, especially now. But I think
less liability, I guess. If it's a private company, I think he could probably get away with a little bit more without any repercussions, perhaps.
Potentially, but I think it's one of those things where I could see it. That's the horrible thing.
What, going back private?
Going back private and just everything returning to the way it was.
Yeah, I'm very much of the opinion that I'm enjoying the on-screen product at the moment.
Yeah.
And if a sale's going to happen, a sale's going to happen. There's nothing that we can do about that. There's no point whinging about it. If that's the way that they want to go, that's the way they want to go. I just don't want the TV program to change that much, because I'm really enjoying it now.
You've got to think that it's going to work more like a media conglomerate becoming, you know, coming into existence. It'd be sort of like, you'd imagine somebody, say a Disney or an ESPN or somebody, will come along, make the offer, potentially buy it, but then it's going to be the case of, okay, well, we're not going to run it because we're already busy, you have to keep running it, and largely you're going to expect it to stay the same, but, you know, there may be tonal shifts depending on what the new owner has in store and in mind for it. It could just completely 180. It could go back to being really violent. You just never know.
It's such a unique industry, pro wrestling. It's one of those, like, you either get it or you don't. So I hope they find the right seller, even if it's not necessarily the highest paying seller, who really gets the vision of what pro wrestling is, because it's not like movies, it's not like conventional TV programming. No. It's not like anything else. And if they came in and just replaced, you know, your Triple H's, your Stephanie McMahon's,
with just writers,
Nick Khan's, or you know what I mean? Yeah. Well, we've seen it before in WWE
when they started just bringing in TV writers,
and they still do it to this day. And their opinions are very, very valuable, because they've got their finger on the pulse, right? They know what is popular within mainstream media. It's really important to have those people, just as opposed to a bunch of wrestling carnies. But there needs to be a mix. You do need those wrestling carnies in there who understand what wrestling fans want, because we're not necessarily a conventional TV watching audience. We're wrestling fans, aren't
we? That's it. So
we're weird.
We're weird.
We are really weird. This whole situation.
We don't have any friends, and nobody takes our favorite sport seriously. It's really annoying.
Right, we're gonna look at the potential buyers in a video early this week. Tom's going to be taking a look at those, so keep an eye out for that. There'll be plenty more of this to talk about. Who knows how this is going to go? It might go quiet for a bit, but just to summarize everything, Vince McMahon is back in WWE.
They didn't take any employee questions, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Here's the news. See you later. Bye.